Okay. All right, sir.
Joseph, do call others, drop a note for them to join us in the class. Just only you. We'll start immediately.
I'll do that, sir. I'll do that, sir.
Yeah, so Abigail Wesi, wa. Okay, I'm sorry. Wa, we. Okay, okay. You seen Bubadaba? Joseph, or during the next 2 minutes, I'm going to start, whether they're here or not. I lecture the class, and when it is time, because I have some other lectures too, but I'm working towards it now.
Okay, so I've dropped the message for them.
Have another class as well waiting for me. Once in the next 2 or 3 minutes, I'm going to start, even if it's you alone. You're welcome, Dende Amos. You didn't speak the other time. You were just keeping quiet in the class, Dende Amos. I just hope this time around you will participate in the social standard, emergency, and then humanitarian services.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah. You're welcome, Nai Grace. Joseph?
Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome back. We'll be starting shortly.
Okay, sir.
You're welcome. So we are welcome back to the class. The class once again is social standard in emergency and humanitarian services. I am Dr. A.D. Teran. Just like I told you earlier, I'm taking the course with the Deputy Center Leader of the Social Standards, our very distinguished Professor Adolphus Angod-Noswem. We work together because, just like you know, the course that will solve a lot of change in the society. It's a practical course. It's a course that is very necessary and has become a prerequisite in achieving the Sustainable Development Goal of the United Nations. It is a course that can be able to help us, for us to increase on the ladder and move from what they call us a third world country or a developing country to a developed society. It's a course that we enable us to solve a lot of issues for us that ordinarily we're confused about. Remembering, we did introduction of the course, we did what is emergency, what is disasters, looking broadly at the learning objective that we're expected to get, including not limited to both man-made and natural disasters. We mentioned them globally. A lot of disasters that's been developing, a lot of emergency issues that cause a lot of damage to our life, causing injuries, causing to our properties, causing a lot of setback. We went further to begin to look at basically issues and how the various steps that should be involved in emergency and disasters, how, what, and what should be done, basic tips in safety management, not limited to other practical issues we spoke about. Fast forward, we'll be talking about agencies and stakeholders associated with disasters and emergency management. Lots of you will be asking, who is supposed to do what, who is supposed to do that, and who are responsible. By the time we look at various agencies, we look at various parastatals, both in the private and the public sectors, including the NGOs, we'll be able to know. And this looks like an exam question. I may just decide to ask you to mention those agencies or stakeholders that are involved with emergency and disaster management in Benue State, in Nigeria, in sub-Saharan Africa, and you should be able to tell me in a very clear and clear terms. Also get it clear that this is a second class. A lot of you may not be in. For people who think in emergency and disaster management, you come in at your will, go out, you will not participate in emergency and humanitarian services. We say, oh, please do pray very well that emergency and disaster should not occur to you in this course, because it is participatory. It's a must. It's a prerequisite for all of you to participate and together so that we better our society. One of the reasons why we have a lot of consequences, a lot of basic issues bothering our society is as a result of lackadaisical attitude. A result of people feeling to do things the way they do. In social standard emergency, the standard is that the social standards and the emergency must be observed, and we must be able to take it seriously. Number one, agency and the stakeholders associated with disaster management is UNITY, what we call the United Nations Office of the Disaster Risk and DRN. The United Nations Office of the Disaster Risk and Reduction, what we call UN, is an agency of the United Nations. Don't forget that the United Nations Office, the headquarters is what we call in New York, headed by the Secretary General of the United Nations. This agency is overall starting with the responsibility of disaster risk and emergency. A lot of things that you see, a lot of functioning that you are seeing that's happening in Nigeria is carried out by the UN Office of GRR. A lot of you may be working, maybe after here, if you're not working, you may be called upon to work with them, how they set standards and how they are able to pay very well. It's the sole aim of disaster risk and reduction. They handle almost everything across the 196 countries or nations that are starting with the responsibility of disaster risk. It is them that are happening, that are taking a lot of issues, that often saying the local government, including your state government, or your federal government claiming responsibility that they are the one handling that. No way, they are not the one. Most of them is at the end of this course that most of you know that, oh, this is what they are doing, this is what you taught, and this is what we call an aberration that has been happening in the society. We look at the United Nations Commission for Refugees. It's one of the other agencies. The agency with a click, with just a Google, you should be able to know the basic function of the United Nations Commission for Refugees, who is the country representative in Nigeria, starting with the responsibility. Next on the ladder, we have the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management. Just last week, few days, the Honorable Minister of that ministry was a lecturer of the Joseph Sawuman Taka University, a former SST director, Professor Nantawa Yadawa, who has moved to be the national chairman of the All Progressive Congress. And the responsibility of that ministry, which is SADU, which is a grade A ministry, although the more pari passu with National Emergency Management Agency, have a whopping budget of, in the 2025 budget, of 260 billion. And one of the reasons they have that kind of chunk of money, we call them grade A, is to handle issues of emergency, to handle issues of disasters. They are also expected to create jobs. Apart from creating jobs, a lot of what you see, like the national cash transfer, a lot of what you see as a handling of emergency, even in Benue State here, where we have the Ministry of Emergency and Humanitarian Services, is their responsibility. We'll be looking at all of that with dissect model. We look at the Ministry of Environment, handling issues of environment and disasters, issues of Ministry of Water Resources. We mention of creating of buffer dams, building of dams, controlling of drainages, or what we call ecological funds, and the Ministry of Water Resources, trying to do with all of that. Ministry of Housing, how are they? Dendi Amos, mute your speakers. Dendi Amos, mute your speakers. We don't condone that here. Please mute your speakers. If you want to speak, you raise up your hand, we allow you. But don't be disturbing our class. Dendi Amos. Water Resources, a Ministry of Housing and Development, what is their own responsibility? How they are involved, how you right away from the building, including the urban development, that you need to build up structures, you need to put us places involved in managing emergency and disasters. We look at issues like NEMA, which is the National Emergency Management Agency, under the jurisdiction, under the Office of the Presidency, that coordinates and collaborate all emergency issues. All emergency issues in Nigeria are handled by NEMA. Even if you are humanitarians, even if you are volunteer, even if you are SEMA, even if you are local emergency management agency or authority, or in other states like 4 states in Nigeria, you are under NEMA. You need to take permission from them for you to handle issues of emergency. It's an agency that works under the presidency and is headed by a director general. At the state level, what we have is executive secretary, and NEMA issues is being guided by the law, what we call the NEMA Act, and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, under the National Assembly, both the Senate and the House of Representatives. At the state level, that act, that law is controlled by what we call the State House of Assembly. We look at the SEMA, and then at the SEMA, the DG at the NEMA level of the state here, James Andakayo Productor is the Executive Secretary of SEMA. What should be their responsibility? We'll be looking at it all. Most of you think emergency or disaster management is just at the state, it's just in town, it's just in metropolis. No, issues of emergency and disaster management, humanitarian services in the local government is handled by what we call Local Emergency Management Committee. As we move on, we'll be telling you who and who is a member of that committee, what should be their responsibility, what are they not doing, why is it that it's very quiet, and why you have to study this course, what will be your expectation, and what you'll be doing. It's one of the stakeholders will be doing with that. We look at the Nigerian meteorological agencies, The Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, which is saddled with responsibility of forecasting, where you forecast all issues concerning most of you hear on channels, on NTL, on Al Jazeera, forecasting that states like Benue, states like Bayelsa, states like Kogi, including the Confluence City, should keep up, they should move up. There's going to be flooding this year. Why this be their responsibility? And other agencies like the Nigerian Hydrological Services, NISA, doing their job, what is expected of them? Then we look at basically the civil society organization. What is supposed to be the role of civil society organization? The law of non-governmental organization. What is the law of non-governmental organization? And what we call the paramilitary. The paramilitary, such as the Federal Road Safety Corps, their fire services, their Navy, Air Force, the Nigerian Police, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, among others, including the International Rescue Committee. At this very point, I go back to Dende. Dende has not been speaking. He has not been making comments, but in your this time is around, you should be able to tell us, other agency, what is the responsibility of this agency that we have mentioned here? And let me start specifically with our call from NEMA. Dende Amos, what is the role of NEMA? What is supposed to be their responsibility in management of emergency and humanitarian services? Dende Amos. We for you, we are assessing you, we are listening to you. What is the role of National Emergency Management Agency? If you cannot understand, what is your role in emergency management and disaster? Doga Jaffet, you have not spoken before, you just joined us. You tell us the role of National Emergency Management Agency. Doga Jaffet, over to you. Dende is still mute. Doga Jaffet. Is Doga Jaffet in this class? And left. What is the role of NEMA? Guema Patricia Akusu. Can you mention just one of the role? You think the National Emergency Management Agency? Anybody in the class can answer that? Any of you can answer that?
Hello, sir.
They assist in saving lives. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, please. Wemo.
They assist in saving lives to protect people from harm by providing timely evacuations and then emergency response when there's an emergency.
Okay. That's okay. Okay. Yeah, who else has another contribution from NEMA, from SEMA? What's the role of SEMA in management of emergency and disasters? Mary Kwahange. Mary Kwahange is joining this class for the first time. What is the role of SEMA in emergency management? Mary Kwahange. Yeah, Mary Kwahange, we're waiting for you. Those who are here now, what is the role of SEMA, of State Emergency Management Agency, in the management of disaster?
They also implement measures to reduce risk and impact of future disasters.
Like what? Be specific, practical. Like what and what? Who can answer that? Yeah, Joseph Odu, can you answer that? The role of SEMA in emergency management.
Okay, I was saying that they also mitigate by providing measures to reduce the risk of the impacts of a disaster, like example, like flood. They evacuate those who have been affected to a safe environment.
Okay, that's a very good attempt. Yeah, can we hear from you, Joseph Bodu?
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. Okay.
Yes.
Can I be heard?
What's the role of SEMA? We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. One of the role of SEMA is community awareness. They educate the public on safety measures, first aid, and disaster prevention strategies, in order to empowering the community to respond effectively to emergency. Once the emergency occurs, due to the training, can be able to respond to them. That's one of their role.
Okay.
Yeah, fine.
Now, what about the civil society? The civil society organization, the NGOs. It's an interactive class. What is the role of civil society? What is the role of NGO?
Hello, sir.
To Ohinado. Yeah, Doga.
Yes.
Japhet.
Yes, sir. I was called and my network threw me out. Yes.
Okay. What is the role of NGOs
society
in emergency management and civil society organization?
The role of civil society.
Can you name one example of the NGO?
Hello, sir.
And then tell us role they do.
Civil society organization.
Time, who can answer? Yeah, can you speak out?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello, sir. Hello, class.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Hello?
Go ahead. Who can answer that? Nai Grace, can you answer that?
The NGO,
Nai Grace, can you answer
civil
that?
society. Hello.
And NGOs.
The NGO,
yeah, the
civil society supports the affected communities by providing humanitarian aid such as food, shelter, and medical services, medical care.
Food, shelter.
Like you have the MSH who does the medical aspects. You have the UNHCR who handles the protection, which covers shelter, food, non-food items, and food items. They take care of the vulnerable, person.
So the civil society organization carry out a lot of functions. One of their role, they do that. Okay, now let's go to Ahemin.
Sir, it's Patricia that responded, not me. Thank you, sir.
Ahemin, what is the role of Navy and Air Force? Yeah, the role of NEMA, the role of SEMA. What is their role in emergency management? Hello? Hello, class?
Hi, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, what's the role of NEMA? The Nigerian police. We talk about the Nigerian police. We talk about what is their role in emergency management.
Okay,
we mentioned them as one of the stakeholders.
Okay, sir. They actually assist depending on the kind of emergency. When it has to do with lives and property, they move in there to ensure the safety of lives and property. And also, if there is a need to evacuate the people there to a community where they can experience some level of peace. They would be present
Nigerian
there.
Immigration Service as one of the stakeholders.
Sir? Hello, sir. Hello, sir. I didn't hear what you said.
And the Air Force.
Sir, I didn't hear what you said.
What is the role of Air Force in Nigerian Immigration Service and a host of others in emergency management?
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Hold on. Yeah, yeah, and then the beggar. Just why are you mute?
Japheth.
This class that is enjoyable. My network has just been disappointing me. I said this class that I should have been enjoying it. My network is just disappointing me.
I didn't get you.
Yes. So
I've never seen this kind of a very bad network. I've never seen this kind of situation. So trying to just to have a very bad issues. Yeah, hello. Hello.
You're welcome back, sir.
Hi, sir.
Hello, sir.
Hi. So back on the matter, we talk for almost 5 to 10 minutes getting all of that. I don't know what's happening. So we were talking about both stakeholders associated with emergency management when they're in humanitarian affairs. We said this is a collaborative effort. And when we say it's a collaborative effort, it's every man's business, ranging from the security agency, from the Air Force, from the Nigerian police. It's not just about, it's an interactive class where all of us are expected to participate and share ideas. That's why we call ourselves facilitators, to facilitate. And not just, remember, this is also postgraduate studies. So it's not just to come where we sit and fold our hands because we're in class. No, in disaster management, in emergency, we participate. We do very well. Banan, Root, too. You're welcome for the very first time. You're joining us for the very first time. So we're talking about stakeholders. If we talk about the Air Force, that was where I asked 9 the last question. The Air Force has the use of what we call drones, the use of aircraft. Where there is emergency has superseded, we cannot be able to be on land. We bring in Air Force, they use their aircraft, they're able to view the situation, they're able to snap, they're able to get a kind of ulterior view. The Nigerian police, where we have a civil unrest, in terms of conflict, in terms of headers crisis, where it has not escalated, we use them. But if the situation, depending on the situation, just like one of the students said, we bring in the army. If it is in the region, where we talk about the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, all of that, they bring in. If it is where the disasters are surpassed what we have of more than the state, we bring in the International Rescue Committee. I told you in the morning that just last week on Thursday, the International Organization for Migration, IOM, under what you call the European Union, as part of emergency and disaster management, has released the sum of 862 million. And that 862 million is for the management of emergency issues in disasters, including those ones in Yerewata, including those ones we have in Guma, we have in Logo, Agatu, Ogbadibo, and all of that. These are the stakeholders we talk about. And for us to happen, for those that most will be thinking that, oh, this is by the state government. It is not by the state government. A lot of disasters effort is not by, it's just a kind of collaboration that is taking place in Nigeria now. It's not by the state government. It's not neither even by the federal government. But as a result of some of these stakeholders we talk about, as part of the collaboration that we talk about in a situation where we make sure all of them comes on board. So it's not for us just to look at them. It's for us to learn. For each of the one we listed here, and I told you that this looks like an exam question. It can be asked. That is why I'm asking you. You should be able to tell us the various stakeholders that are saddled with the responsibility of maintaining and ensuring emergency and disaster situation in the country. And by doing so, you should be able to tell us and give us their function, depending on all of that we need. That takes us to what we talk about. So you should know them and know peace. You can mention other ones. I say where I was trying to. Which other stakeholders do we think they are very important? They should be involved in management of disaster. And that goes to Joseph Odu. Joseph Odu, which other stakeholders should we bring them in management of emergency and disaster management? The next question will be going to Mary Kwahange. She has not spoken. She's joined us at last. She will be the one to contribute, and then we'll go back to Doga Japheth as well. Joseph Odu, we are coming back to you to Dandy Moses as well. You've not spoken since in the morning. In emergency management, humanitarian affairs, everybody must participate, and we'll assess you and give you marks as part of the requirements.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello, Joseph. We're together.
I didn't get your question, sir.
I asked you that which other stakeholders should we involve in management of disasters? This is also our way of calling your attention to be out in emergency, not just to log in and not be listening or be participating. Which other agency, organization should we involve in the management of emergency as stakeholders? Yeah, who can answer that?
I think
because we are keeping quiet and we don't have the luxury of time. Who can answer that? Who can make an attempt? Or those who want to make an attempt? Or do we are listening? You just have to feel and keep silent.
Community-based organizations. The network from here is not okay. Community-based organizations can be
we cannot give you time to Google.
Yes, these people, they can provide localized support.
You don't know, you pass to another. Not to Google on your system and begin to wait for you to Google or go to AI, chat AI, and give us answer. Our other aims of disasters is that we bring in community-based organization. We assess you, we mark you in this class. So when you are handling emergency and disaster management, you have to be out. On the aims, and remember this very paper, emergency is the first course that you are going to write. On the 11th, all things being equal, 11th of August, the first exams, even as it's coming towards the end, it should be the first exam that you write. And these are the things that will be coming up in your exams. And you need to know, to mention. We say the aim of all that we are discussing, the aim of the emergency, the aim of disaster management is to reduce, to avoid, where we cannot be able to avoid disasters, we should have what we call reduce the potential losses of the hazard, of the injury, of the damages. We should assure a kind of prompt and appropriate assistance or what we have to victims if necessary. Then we should also be able to achieve what we call durable solution. Durable solution is looking for various livelihood diversification strategies. For people that are in IDPs, people that are displaced by community, we can teach them things like how we can empower them, give them resources, including loan. Apart from loan, we'll give them grant without interest. That they can be able to, not to go and marry, but to be able to rejig themselves, to be able to rehabilitate themselves, to be able to restructure themselves, to be able to make sure we work towards to achieving, and that could be a kind of reducing potential hazard. So that is one of the aims of disaster management. Another aim is to assure prompt and appropriate assistance to the victim. You don't have to wait from time immemorial or wait in totality for a long period of time before you respond to issues of emergency and disasters. You have to respond on time. By next lecture tomorrow, We'll be telling you how you need to respond, how you have to be within 24 hours to 48 hours. We'll look at all of that. We have to also achieve durable recovery. We talk about mitigation of disasters involving reducing the presence of those hazards, reducing the vulnerability as you see them scatter around Daudu, Ichua, modern market, international market. Talk about issues like in Goma, moving to other suburbs where you have a lot of them. Part of this mitigation measure, as can be seen, is to make sure the set of activities are implemented, and not just implemented, you make sure that, at the end of the day, you assess the need of people. What do they actually need in those places? Reduce the suffering, reduce the kind of effects, including psychological trauma, including what we call depression. It could result into depression, psychological trauma as a result of emergency. We handle all of that to make sure we remedy the spread and the consequences of disaster. If you are not able to curtail, if you're not able to reduce, if you're not able to prevent some of this, it could lead to an epidemic. It could lead to not just from epidemic, but to pandemic. I asked in the other class, what is the difference between epidemics and pandemic? And who can tell me the difference between pandemics and epidemic? And let me put that question specifically. Lots of people vanishing in the class, we just have on now. Grace, Nai, what's the difference between epidemic and pandemic?
Okay, so
when I do so, yeah. Okay. When we talk about epidemics and pandemics, basically it depends on the spread. Epidemics is just within the region.
Understanding of epidemic is like an outburst of a particular disease. Can you hear me?
We are listening to you. We can hear you. When we talk about epidemics and pandemics, simply, we are talking about this widespread nature of the issue. If it is an epidemic, it's within a region, within a locality. But when we talk about pandemics, we talk about global spread. That has spread globally. And we talk about issues in a situation like, we talk about like COVID-19. COVID-19 is a pandemic. Glowing on HIV is a pandemic, scattering over the country. But when we talk about a kind of an epidemic, we're talking about issues like cholera. Now we are looking at elements of disaster management. We talk about elements of disaster management. We talk about 5 of them or 6: disaster preparedness, planning and vulnerability. We talk about risk assessment, disaster response. We talk about risk assessment. We talk about rehabilitation. We talk about reconstruction. We talk about disaster mitigation. All of this has to do with disaster management in a situation. Please, in emergency and disaster, let me also put this warning. If you think you can dash into the class, when you dash into the class, we are very few, and just before then, a lot of people disappear. And if that is not network, there will be a punitive measure for that. Because when the time we'll be able to know, it will happen. So when we are in for emergency and humanitarian services, we have to be very attentive and collaborative. That is why we call you by names. We ensure that you participate, you make up your contribution as part of our assessment, we should know. So by doing so, we'll be able to know. We talk about preparation involving getting all the stage set, making sure that you put your house in order, getting all the apparatus, including your kits, being alert, even embarking on drain, and having a kind of budget for government or maybe non-governmental organization, even for individual response. Then we talk about response. We give a picture of what the response should be like, being on time, being available, or what should be done. And then we carry up assessment. Why do we need to carry up assessment when a disaster has occurred? We need to know the nature of that disasters. We need to know the number of casualties. We need to know the number of male. We need to know the number of female. We need to know the number of age differences. What will be the age differences between both the elderly persons, the young people, women? We talk about those with disability. That assessment will be able to help us to be able to know what we should talk about, and then to go into rehabilitation or mitigation measures. Now we're looking at disasters management leading to activities related terms. If you look at the disaster management, you look at the disaster mitigation, risk assessment, we look at prevention, we look at preparedness. We will also look at what we call the rehabilitation, dealing with search, what we talk about rescue, food security, basically food security as well. Talk about water, we talk about shelter, we talk about sanitation. These are some of the roles of the NGOs and then the civil society organization. Talk about clothing, making sure they have blankets, conveniences like toilets, facilities, talking about care. Then we look at the hazard assessment, look at the vulnerability assessment, look at the structural measures. Do they have toilets, facilities? Where do they are able to embark? Or are they using modern duplication and all of that? We should be able to look at the structures. 6 of us remaining in the class, yes, Dendi, Doga, Joseph, Ohena. The rest of others, hoping they should join. But if they don't join all of that, we have to put all of this in places and make sure we have this kind of places. Then we have the kind of hazard assessment. We look at some other, apart from hazard assessment, we look at what we call the short-term and the long-term effect of disaster management. And then go back to Ohena, Dosu. Dosu, Ohena, what are the short-term and the long-term effect of emergency and disasters? What are the long-term and the short-term effects of emergency and disasters? Joseph Odu, can you answer that?
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, Dosu. So what are the long-term and the short-term effects of emergency and disasters? Yeah, Odu, can you answer that? Joseph Odu. Doug and Jafet, what are the long-term and the short-term effects of emergency and disasters?
Hello, sir.
Chidima, can you answer that?
They are not hearing me.
Yeah.
We're
hearing you. That should be from.
Okay, this is Joseph.
Chidima,
sir.
what are the long-term and the short-term? You're not speaking of Joseph. You're just repeating repeatedly. What are the long-term and the short-term effects of emergency and disasters? We have a slide there. You can read from the slide, and you seem to be mute.
So can I go on now?
Chidima, Chidima, go ahead.
Okay, looking at the slides on the screen, one of the long-term is land loss, destruction of infrastructure, capital loss, and then scapegoating and social unrest. Then the long-term is structural consequences. Can you hear me, sir?
Doga, can you mute your speakers, Doga? Doga, Joseph, Japhet, can you mute your speakers? You are not talking, you're making us from the background. Yeah, Chidima, go ahead.
Okay, and then the long-term is structural consequences, societal change, economic restructuring, long-term demographic change, redistribution of.
What do you mean by that? What is your understanding about that?
Okay, one of the
what is your understanding about?
My understanding for when it comes to the short term, we have land loss. Some of these internally displaced persons no longer have access to their houses. Take for instance, those staying at Giado Villa upwards. You know, they don't have access to their houses, especially this raining period, and it's flooded. Then the long term, some of the constructions are spoiled, and then it leads to re-establishment of the building structures, and then reform, and then there are social changes too. Things may change over time. So I think that's a long term and a short term from the slides and my own understanding. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Chidima Ologawara. I can give you, if I'm to give you, I'll give you 80 and I'll give you an A for that explanation. That was a very good explanation and robust.
Thank you so
and you
much,
have a very
sir.
good assessment there. We have a very good assessment there for participating. For those who think you will not talk, you will not you contribute in this, let me make it clear that part of our assessment in emergency and humanitarian affairs is that everybody participate. So it's part of the assessment. Let it be in a very clear and a clear system. We look at the effects of disasters and individual families. We look at just like it happens in your water, loss of land, a lot of people, their land is being taken away by hand grabbers, land grabbers, could be genocidal attack, we took out by herdsmen, it could be a lot of conflict, loading cliff and mudslide. There's lots of livelihood. We gave you an example that about 200 people lost their life in here, water in Benue here. 156 in Mokwa, in Niger State. We talk about that, we mention them. Then we talk about income, a lot of people having a lot of income, losing their income and capital. Then there's loss of job. A lot of them having a lot of job, we lost job, high level on unemployment. We talk about extensive and social disruption, a lot of disruption, a lot of moving. As we talk down, a lot of people are staying in their IDPs, there's kind of a society collapse, demographic changes, different degrees of injury, different degrees of damages, different degrees of hazard, different damages, both to individual, affecting what we call multiplier effect. There's this kind of multiplier effect on a lot of people in the disaster management. And then there's also this one we call objective prevention. What are the principal objective of mitigation? The principal objective is to mitigate, to remove vulnerability, and to decrease the impact of all these disasters that we're looking at it. We make sure that the capacity recover will be stronger, and then this is disaster prevention, call for coordination, the whole society. Then there's also what we call, just like we saw earlier, in kind of physical planning measure, in terms of what we call physical measures for urban planners, choosing a safe locality, in terms of assessment, just like we saw in this picture. When you look at that pictures very well, we have a lot of that. And then we look at what we call houses involving choosing a safe locality to be able to do that. In part of emergency, we embark on economic measures. Economic measures diversify the economy, making community less vulnerable. After flood, all the crops are destroyed. We do what is known as local industry, deal with chemicals, do not be affected. The economic incentives and assurances. Loans are granted for seven, building something like dikes, making sure you have a lot of basic issues. You have a lot of grant, assessing these people that are affected by disaster and the management. This is part of economic measure. Another economic measure is to make sure you have issues like what we call ensure all your property and then any issues you have about yourself, your house, your environment. By the time you carry out insurance, including in those in agriculture, even your crops, if they are being wiped away by flood, by fire disasters, the National Insurance Corporation will be able to take care of that. They will pay all of that, take care of all the impending issues, and you will be taken care of. That is a kind of economic measure in mitigation of disasters. Then we look at the institutional. We will look at the institutional measures. The measures have to include building our schools, building our environment, making sure that you have everything in place, including structures. You look at basic issues like we are talking about here, issues like not just the other measures. Look at basic issues like building our school. Do you have schools? We are in Daudu, in Ichwa, along University of Agriculture, Makode, in Modern Market, in Plateau State. Yes, we have them in Borno State. It's part of emergency management measures. We have some other measures where you can build school. That's a very standard school. Upstairs, engaging the student, which we call them leaders of tomorrow, as part of the institutional measure. We look at the society measures. We look at the bylaws, how we can be able to rejig, making sure that engineering and construction, where we have issues of building collapse, issues like basically special infrastructures, special hazard, materials and design, engineers, consider 2 objectives to reduce the impact of the hazard, to build stronger building, and reduce what we call itself, and then to prevent. We'll look at the risks and reductions, and then who, emergency reduction actions, physical planning measures, decentralization of elements at risk, as you see in the pictures here, control of the population. Apart from control of the population density, you design and service road. We mentioned that before. That could be a very good measures, how you can be able to curtail, how you can be able to use most of that to be able to do that. Apart from the physical planning measures, we talk about issues like building of drainages, making sure that, where you have a slum, it's part of management of emergency. Your slums use places like Wadata, places like Urukum, places like Yanya in Abuja, places like Agege in Lagos, where you have a lot of people gathering together. You make sure that's having social distances, building houses or facilities, making sure they have affordable houses is another way of managing and risk reduction. Because in those kind of places, if there's any risk, if there's any epidemics, if there's any pandemic, a lot of people will be affected, a lot of population will be affected. So it's a very good measure that you have to do about that. Another way of doing is education and training. Nai was mentioning about training. We talk about training and education is part of what we are doing here. In part of, and next is what we call research. You can embark on research, those in academia, or even those of you that will be writing project. Your project will be on emergency and disasters. And that could be a way you contribute in emergency and disasters, bring the way. Then bringing in the issues of technical expertise. Technical expertise, this is one of the expertise that we're training you here. We make sure that you have technical expertise in handling a lot of issues. I was talking about, just like I asked you, how many of you know how to use fire extinguishers? How many of you are able to know how to dive? How many of you who can be able to, in a way, be able to swim? If you are eventually, there's a kind of what we call air or water disasters. How can you be able to rescue yourself? How can you be able to wear your jacket? How you be able to use your helmet? And how will you be doing all of that? All of this comes under capacity building, under research and training. Then we talk about strengthening of capability and localities. In localities, we have to talk about strengthening of our own capacity, putting things in place that will be able to make sure we have a very strong, what we have as a public information campaign, still going back to education, this, what we call desensitizing hazard. Make sure that you'll be able to break them into it. They involve community. Community should be involved in the management of disasters. It's not just you alone. How do you involve community? You get them in traditional training. They are part of the local emergency management agency. They are part of traditional rulers, including religious leaders, including those with pastors, including those and those in other religion. That has involved a very strong community. Community management is able to talk about community and rural integration, how they are being able to manage their disasters, including issues like bush burning, how they are able to control their housing structures, making sure we have a lot of that. Then there are 2 types that have stronger individual structures and hazard control string structure. I spoke about that earlier. That buildings, some of them are resistant to fire, they are resistant to some basic issues, and there's some buildings that have a kind of drop and valid. That takes us to what an assignment for today. And what as our assignment, I will call on Chidima. Chidima, read our assignment for us. What is the assignment we have there, and what is the instruction? Chidima, you should be able to read that for us.
Okay, yes, sir, but it's just showing, screen has just started sharing. Okay, it's clear now. Explain vividly the short-term and long-term effects of emergencies and disaster management in the Eluwata community, Guma local government area of Benue State, Nigeria. Then the second one is, what are the roles of international organizations and humanitarian agencies in emergency preparedness and disaster risk reduction? Deadline for submission.
So what is it? You are not finished
today.
10 days from now?
Yes,
and it
sir.
should be submitted.
It should be submitted.
Read everything to the end.
On dunengeteran@uam.edu.ng.
That is your assignment. It's 9 time for your questions. time for your contribution, time for your comments, come for your addition before we are able to do that.
Excuse
if you have
me,
any
sir.
question, any contribution, we have come to the contribution of the end of this class for today.
Excuse me, sir. I think your email is not properly shown. It's just, I think it's halved somehow. I just used my initiative to know the names. I don't know if there's a way you can properly align it so that it will show. Thank you, sir.
What happened? Chidima, what's the question?
I said, okay, no, it's not a question, it's just an observation. On the assignment, your email is not properly showing. I know it's on Dunenge Terran, but it's not showing very well. There's a way it's cutting out. It divided it into two. So if there's a way it can be done. Thank you, sir.
That should be a technical error. On my screen here, it's appearing very well, but I'll still drop my email. Still, I'm dropping it on the platform. I'll drop it on the platform now. Yeah, Nai Grace, your question, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, what's the difference between epidemic and pandemic? Thank you so much.
We answered that before. Please, you were out. We say epidemics has to be with the spread. It's diseases that happen within just a region, within a locality. While pandemics has to be with a disease or an occurrence that has to do with global spread, that spread across country, we spread above, or involving globally. We talk about epidemics, it could just be in Benue, it could just be within Plateau. But when we talk about pandemic, it has to be in like a country. Like we talk about COVID-19 is a pandemic, HIV/AIDS is a pandemic. But we talk about issues like cholera. We talk about issues like basically it's an epidemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. If there's any questions, my numbers are there, my emails are there. You say the email didn't appear well, I'm still writing the email on the platform. If there are questions, let us know about that. Other further questions from Joe Gajapet. If there's any questions before we close for the day. If any question from what we have. That assignment should be submitted within 10 days. And make sure this assignment as well can be exam questions. That's what we're talking about. So for those who are not available, tell them to make sure to submit the assignment, and the assignment can also be basically for 10 days. If there's no further question, we call it a day. Bye-bye, and God bless all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, and God bless all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, you're welcome.
Well done, sir.
Thank you, sir.